Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to look at the Griffin Co Scout F2 and the Griffin Co Scout F3.5. If you happen to miss the drop on these two, don't worry. The reason I'm doing this video today is because the authorized dealers for Griffin Co will be doing their drops. The first one is Blade and Beam. Their drop is this Friday, the 22nd. And also, I know Griffin is also going to be doing a drop on the Griffin Co site. I don't know exactly when that one will be. And then after that, you'll have DLT Trading, House of Knives, Blade Binge, and Advanced Carry AU, as well as the Knife Lounge. So they will be getting theirs in the next few days as well, and I'm sure they'll be announcing their drops. So we're gonna get started first with the little guy. The F2 is a fantastic fifth pocket carry knife. I have been dropping this one in my fifth pocket almost every day since I've gotten it. I think it looks really nice, and there's something about the small knives that are done really well. They can make a small knife like this at this type of quality. This one comes in at 4.96 inches long with a 2-inch drop point blade in CPM MagnaCut steel. I went with the black coated blade and black coated titanium. You have some nice effective jimping up here, grabs hold of the thumb nicely without being uncomfortable. I like the look of that top swedge up there. I think it makes this blade look really sweet. You have a blade window on both sides. You have a nice point right there for piercing and doing drag cuts. And being that this is a smaller blade, it's very easy to get that tip down into things to do drag cuts. You do have a well-executed sharpening choil that should give you a bunch of sharpening light before it'll widen in the back right here. This side of the blade is completely sterile. All you have is the little Griffin logo right there. This one has a flat grind and a nice and thin blade geometry at 12 thousandths behind the edge. Let's see what this little guy can do. I must say, I felt pretty locked in, especially with that bead at the end. It gave me something a little bit to hold on to with that third finger. And, you know, it's slicing good. It's got very good edge geometry. It came with a nice edge out of box. And, you know, I wasn't sure what I would better do with it. I decided to do some of the normal stuff, and I was pleasantly surprised. I did a few times get hung up toward the choil area, but that was my fault. And we're just going to see if you could do some feather sticks, kind of see if there's anything poking my hands or anything. And once I got the right grip and that hammer grip to where I was locked in, I was able to get a good bit of force. You'll definitely see it toward the end. I mean, I'm really bearing down into this wood, and it did a good job. I was easily able to make fine curls. That wasn't an issue. I just wanted to see if I could hold on to it comfortably while exerting a lot of pressure into the wood, and I was definitely able to do so. So definitely think it gets a pass there. And now, being that you have such a small blade, it's easy to get that tip onto things to drag cuts, and you have that perfect amount of belly to do these cuts on a flat cutting surface. And doing stuff like this where I have to use more pressure, you definitely gonna want to hold it with pinch grip, because you're gonna be able to exert more force down, just like doing the corner cardboard. You know, it wasn't that it was hard as far as sharpness goes and blade geometry. It was just getting the right grip on the handle. But can you get stuff done? No doubt. You know, I mean, this isn't going to be a heavy user, all-day user, but you could definitely get some work done, and you can do it rather easily. The edge held up the entire time. And once again, I love me some MagnaCut. I can't wait to see what the big one does. Now let's take a look at the deployment of this knife. You have a front flipper, and like I said, you have the blade windows on both sides. The front flipper is dialed for just a regular front flipper on my particular knife. You have to make sure you're not holding on to that lock bar. I keep my fingers on the pocket clip, and I get a very nice and snappy action. It is riding on ceramic bearings with a ceramic detent ball. Sometimes I can do the reach around. Yep, there you go. I can't do a reverse flick on mine. I don't know if it's because of where I'm putting my fingers, but I just can't. It's like I said, dialed. The detent is dialed for that front flipper. Just listen. Nice positive detent there. The jimping on the spine, does grip the finger nicely. Now, the only thing I think you could, to make it any better, would make that a little bit more fine cut jimping, but the way it stands, it still works just fine. I get perfect amount of grip. So it's not that big of an issue. I just find with the finer cut jimping, the smaller spaces in there that are grippier on the finger, I find that makes it a lot easier to get a purchase on them. Like I said, I went with the black coated titanium. I have the Ultim inlay. I'm pretty sure Best Tech is the OEM, and they did a phenomenal job. No gaps that I see. Nice and tight. I don't feel any high spots. Everything is nicely mated up. And even though you have a small knife, they still managed to put Torx T8 throughout. That is awesome. You have a titanium backspacer with a hidden lanyard post that's holding on to this little lanyard. Your inlay is also on the reverse side. There's other inlay options. They have options without any inlays that are cheaper. You can get Ultim, you get micarta, you can get carbon fiber. They even had zirconium and Damascus inlays as well. And I'm sure most of those will dictate the price. You have a milled titanium pocket clip that's tip up, right hand carry only, but they also have left-handed versions. It's not deep carry, but it sits fairly deep in the pocket. It goes in and out of the pocket nicely. There's still enough spring to it. You have the milled out section for the inlays to reduce weight on both sides. Plus, hopefully you can see that in there. There's also milling in the inside to relieve weight on the top. And you see on the lock side, you can see in the back, hopefully back there. Bringing this to 1.9 ounces. Absolute featherweight. The lockup on my knife is sitting, I'd say, at around 30-40% or so. Access to the lock bar is good because this comes down a little bit further. You got a nice chamfer right there. It's very comfortable to get my finger in there, no problem. There is a hardened stainless steel lock insert, as you can see there, that also doubles as an over travel. This thing has very, very tight, solid lockup. No movement at all, up or down, left or right. And for such a small knife, that's really cool to see. Now, I was trying my hardest to find knives that were close to this size, but I don't have a whole lot. This is Civivi Baby Banter and the CJRB Mini Pyrite. Both of these are larger. And it's just a hair shorter than the ProTech Runt 5. And it's pretty much identical to this Urban EDC Baby Barlow. Two more pretty good size references. We have the Microtech Mini Trudon, and this one's from Urban EDC too. I think it's called the Half Delta. Nitpicks and complaints. The only thing I guess I could be nitpicky in maybe making this fine cut jimping, but that's very minor because, like I said, it still functions really, really nicely, and it still allows me to easily front flip it. And being that this Ultim is flat, I think it would have looked really, really nice with some very fine micro milling. Gives it some extra traction. But, you know, as it sits, I think it still looks really, really nice. And I had no problems with it feeling like it was a slip in my hand or anything. Overall, I think this is an awesome little fifth pocket knife. If you like smaller knives, I think you'll love this one. Next up, we have the big boy, the Griffin Co Scout F3.5, coming in at 8.48 inches long with a 3.5-inch drop point blade. Also in CPM MagnaCut steel. Has the same stuff as the little one, just bigger and wider proportions. My particular version is the belt satin, a nice even belt satin. Vertical on the primary grind and the top swedge, and then you have horizontal on the flats. The jimping on this one is perfection as far as grip goes. It's in the right spot. The flat grind on this one comes down to around 14 thousandths behind the edge, and it has a 20 degrees per side edge bevel. I'm very excited to see what this thing can do. So I went straight to the larger version after I tested the little version, and man, this wider blade paired with the nice geometry, and not to mention this one came with a very toothy edge, so it was slicing so well. Being that I have more blade length on this one, I add I think an extra long sheet of cardboard in here and a few more things toward the end of the test, but man, I gotta say, it is slicing better than I've seen in a good little bit. and I got a big smile on my face right about this point. So hopefully it holds up. I think it will. Now we test those ergos, and this is where this knife really shines, because the wider handle really fills out the hand nice, a little bit nicer than the F3, and I love that knife. So start out making fine curls, just showing you how good that edge is, and slowly you can start seeing me get bigger chunks because I'm pushing more and more into it. And then usually when I lift the board up is when I'm really bearing down. But I was able to get a lot of force into the wood, no problem. Nothing poking or prodding me on this handle. My medium-sized hands fit perfect in the grooves on the handle, and I'm really bearing down to this. So excellent job on the ergos on this one for sure. Definitely a fun one to use. Now you can use that tip. I did have to come up a little bit higher, but you're not at a 90 degree. That extra belly is going to really shine cutting things on a flat surface right here. And you can see me blasting through this stuff. It's really going through it like it's not even there. Very happy at this point on how well it's cut into 10-ounce denim. Absolute joke for this knife. And it's blasting through it. Did not felt like it let up at all. And we're going to go to the 1/2-inch sisal rope, and I end up cutting an extra long section of sisal rope because watch how easily, I mean, I'm barely putting pressure into it, and I'm push cutting this. Very easily passing through it, and it was nice and comfortable because when you don't have to exert that much force down into it, it's easier for me to do. And now you can see me using that pointer finger grip. That jimping's holding my index finger nicely, and I swap back and forth just because I know I got a lot of rope to cut, and it's not feeling like it's slacking off in the least. The pinch grip was comfortable, and you know it also has something to do with that wide belly like that. I mean, that wide blade, and then the high grind that's nice and thin. You have the extra mass of the blade making it easier because it's going down into what you're cutting, and that belly just makes it so easy to either, you know, push cut, drag cut, sawing motion cut. Everything's gonna work outstanding. And yeah, this was probably the easiest rope cutting I've done in the last few months. I end up getting through 200 cuts before I end up running out of the second piece I cut. And there's no doubt about it, I definitely could have done more than that. But this rope gets expensive. So that's where I ended up shutting it down. And of course, in typical fashion, we will test the edge on the bigger one right after we finish with this. But I'll tell you what, it still feels like it's got a really nice edge. Definitely one I could strap back, I'm sure. So definitely interested to see how it is, and it was a definite pleasure doing the test on this one, no doubt about it. It's been a minute since a knife has not left a blister on my hands after doing the testing, but I'm all good on this one. Now let's see what that edge is like after all that cutting. What? That's why I like MagnaCut, people. And that's slow cuts. That's impressive. Now let's take a look at this deployment on the bigger version. You had the front flipper. Works great. It's got a well-tuned detent. Pretty drop shut. You do have extra mass for that blade to go down. It is riding on ceramic bearings with the ceramic detent ball. Reverse flick, outstanding. That's one good thing about the satin finish. You're going to get that sharper edge right there. Makes it easier to reverse flick it. I don't know how the stonewash versions are or anything. If I want to slow roll it, I just pinch like that. And I can do that as well. Let's see, can I? I can kind of thumb flick it. You just got to make sure your finger's on the pocket clip. But the detent is much more suited for the front flipper and for the reverse flick, in my opinion. I can also do the roll around like that. Can do the slow roll. So tons of options. You could also do the Spidey drop on it Take a look at the handle. I went with the stonewashed titanium and the marbled carbon fiber inlay. That looks stunning. No voids that I see. Very tight fitment on this one as well. No high spots, no gaps, no low spots. Look at the nice crisp hardware. T8 construction throughout as well. Milled clip and blind screwed, meaning it's screwed from the inside. Tie back spacer with the geared pattern there. There's your hidden lanyard post. And you can probably see this internal milling a little bit better on the bigger one. As you can see, they got a good bit of internal milling on the scale on the top and bottom. Lockup on my knife is about, I'd say 30-40% or so. Good access to this one as well because this comes down a little bit further. You have that chamfer right there. It's nice and comfortable to get my finger in there. The lockup on this one is even more solid feeling than the little one, obviously. Had the hardened stainless steel lock insert over travel. Quick size comparison, it's just a hair shorter than the Ontario Rat 1 and dwarfs the Rat 2. And it's a hair shorter than the Cold Steel AD10 and a hair longer than the Spyderco PM2. And it's also almost identical in length to the Tuya Kaladin and the Wii and Civivi Praxis. And for my nitpicking complaints, once again, just being really nitpicky, I think it would have been even better with finer cut jimping. Even though this one functions perfectly, fine cut jimping would give you even better traction when using it as a front flipper, but I have no problems slipping off or anything the way it sits. So what are my final thoughts? Well, I had to ask myself, if I were only able to keep one of these knives, which one would it be? And after doing the testing with this one, carrying it, feeling how good it feels in hand, if I were forced to, it would be the F3.5. I'd probably cry a little if I had to get rid of those two. But if I had to, that would be my number one choice. But I'll tell you what, as a fifth pocket carry, this one has probably earned that spot over any lately. And I don't see it getting kicked out anytime soon. I think it looks really, really sweet. I'm sure if my wife or my daughter sees it, they may try to steal it from me. But if not, it'll continue to be a fifth pocket carry for me. Love the Ultim bead. If you haven't ever checked out Combat Beads, Griffin Co's other part of their company, they do some just amazing bead work. And this Ultim bead fits perfect on this one. And I have another awesome one that I'm trying to decide if I want to put it on this knife or on the Scout fixed blade. So to say I'm a fan of the Griffin Scout lineup would be an understatement. I absolutely love that they did an entire line of knives from the same design. I think that is genius, especially when it's a design that works. And man, he's got some really, really awesome things in the pipeline. So if you're not already following Griffin Co. Combat Beads, do yourself a favor. Go follow them on any platform they're on. And definitely be watching out for what they have coming because I'm just going to say it's exciting. Cannot wait for those reveals to happen. And let me know what you think about the F3.5 and the F2. Remember, dealers will be dropping theirs fairly soon. They do have a drop on Friday at Blade and Beam. If you missed out on it, that will be your first chance to be able to pick up one. I don't know how many they have at each dealer or what variations or anything like that. If you want to know that kind of stuff, you could ask it. I'm sure Keith will be in the comments as much as he can be. And yeah, I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. Like I said, if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask me down below. And I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.